Uh, so today, what we're doing is starting kind of a comparing different types of breeders. In a way, they're the people who breed, not the actual animals. Even though, because actually there is a ton of similarities between monitors and skinks. It's really like, if you get down to it, wow, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, and they, and the thing with the skinks, I don't know how the monitors are, but unlike like my sand boas, you can pair them together, and 80% are going to go every year. The skinks definitely are, if you get a 50% ratio, that's probably doing great. And the breeding process is so much more intense of having to sit and watch them because, they unfortunately are a danger to one another.
One's passion. And that may sound weird, but so that saying, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, is insanity. Well, you guys breed. Okay. All right, we're going now. We were talking about Brady here because I'm so bad with names. I called him Brad, and it's like, oh, well, Brady, I should have recognized Brady, Tom Brady, and I'm a Chiefs fan. But it was really me and Brady here met at the shows. Here at our local shows. Literally, it's like 15 minutes away from my house. And it's really amazing to me. Not really amazing, but how much in St. Louis we're in. So how many people here in St. Louis? I'm not sure where the clicking's coming from. One of you guys got a fan on or something?
No.
It's on Jay's end somewhere. That's all right. You okay, Jay? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking in and out a little bit. Yeah.
All back.
Yeah, I was going to say that the people here in St. Louis have kind of canceled out of NFL because of the Rams leaving.
They definitely have checked out.
Yeah, it's really bad. Like, it's like, oh, wow, you guys see that game last night? No, we really didn't. We didn't watch the Super Bowl. We didn't do anything. And I don't blame them. I really don't. I mean,
yeah, I lost a lot of interest with it. It was just, they did the city wrong with that completely. It was more the owner of the Rams even, but the NFL was all a part of it. They knew it was happening for years in advance, and they let the city spend all kinds of money trying to draw up new plans and keep the team here. So that's the part that was wrong about it.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. So where are you from, Jay?
New Jersey.
I'm sorry. No,
New Jersey.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. So today, what we're doing is starting kind of a comparing different types of breeders. In a way, they're the people who breed, not the actual animals. Even though, because actually there is a ton of similarities between monitors and skinks. It's really like, if you get down to it, because there's so many different kinds of skinks and so many different kinds of monitors that it's like, oh, well, there's monitors that want to live in trees. There's skinks that want to live in trees. There's monitors that want to live underground. There's skinks that want to live underground. There's the monitors and skinks themselves. I mean, they both often want to have something touching their bottom and their top. And I don't really enjoy something touching my top and bottom. Maybe I don't really know how to make that sound better. But yeah, so there is some similarities between the species. So what's the difference between the keepers? And so the way I start these out is often I will ask just for you guys to give who you are and how you relate to breeding of the species. And then I will ask one of you to tell a story. And I will have the other one after the story ask you a question. and you are completely free to talk about whatever story you want. All I ask is that you be detailed as you possibly can. That's it. That is the only rule. Be as detailed as you can. So, which one of you guys want to start by telling us who you are and what you bred?
Doesn't matter. I'm open to it. That's fine.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brady.
Well, my name is Brady Nelson, and mostly, people probably know me more by that, but also Midwest Reptiles. That's my my Facebook page. You can, check that out if you want. I primarily actually got started, as an adult with snakes, keeping Kenyan sand boas. And, reptiles, as we all know, they can be kind of addictive. So you get a couple, and before you know it, you've got 11. And then the next thing you know, you have a rack, and now you're a breeder. And now, as much as you enjoy that species, something else would be cool to have just as a pet. So I originally got one blue-tongued skink just as a pet about 7-8 years ago, as they really kind of started to take off in a little burst of popularity there. I got one as a pet. They were so hard to get a hold of at that point in time. You had to be watching forums right away, and as soon as a litter was listed, jump on it and get one. So I got one northern blue-tongued skink as just a classic. Made an amazing pet. Came in as a little baby and was just, feisty as can be. Wanted to eat your fingers, chew on you, even though you're 5,000 times its size. And I just kind of fell in love with the personality of them right away. And then, as they grow and get used to you, they get, so much more calm and so much more almost like a reptilian puppy dog. So, and then after about 2 years of keeping it, as a pet, it's kind of our, if you're a breeder and it's in your heart, it kind of just starts automatically. You start thinking, well, what would it be like to produce a litter of these? I wonder. So, at that point in time, and even still now, sexing blue-tongued skinks as a baby isn't an exact art. So you kind of had to just start buying in quantity in hopes that in a year or two you'll have the right mix and be able to. So I started out with buying, from a few different breeders that I met online, people who were very helpful, in forums and on Facebook. And so I started out with a group of 5 or 6. And 2 years later, I had 5 males and 1 female. So unfortunately, that's just, kind of the way it worked. So it was a slow start to ramp up. But, then slowly I was able to, work with it, get a couple of females up to size. And it probably was best. Probably the worst thing that could have happened right away for me would have been, to have multiple ready to breed right away before I really understood the process and how things were going to go. So it worked out. The first year I had, exactly 1 female to breed, and was able to sit down and observe the process and go through it slowly and take my time and make one awesome litter. But then you just kind of fall in love with it. As soon as you see that litter of babies in there and you come out, it's like an awesome surprise when you come home after you've been waiting for months and months for the mom to finally drop them. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then slowly you just every litter that you have, you fall in love with 2 or 3 of them that you really want to see what their colors develop. And so I think it happens a lot with breeders and different species that you end up holding back more than you probably really should. Plus then every time you see something at a show or something that you really think would combine great, your collection just sort of slowly grows and grows. So that's kind of where I am at now. I've got probably a group of about, I'd say probably about 50 adults overall.
Wow. I didn't know you were that big. Wow. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. And they, and the thing with the skinks, I don't know how the monitors are, but, unlike, like my sand boas, you can pair them together and, 80% are going to go every year. The skinks definitely are, if you get a 50% ratio, that's probably doing great. And the breeding process is so much more intense of having to sit and watch them because, they unfortunately are a danger to one another if you're not careful. You can't just chuck them in together like you can with a couple of Kenyan sand boas and walk away and come back 3 days later. So not everyone's going to go every year. There's no way in the world you're going to make use of the entire group, but that's for the best. I don't think that any species should really be bred every year one after another. I like to try to skip every third year at 2 years on, 1 year's off at the most.
Is that your story, or is that like your intro?
Well, that's kind of my intro of how I got into it.
That's cool.
It's kind of both.
Yeah, I'm like, that's cool though. No, that's great. What about you, Jay?
So I guess kind of similar thing. I guess it's both my intro and I guess it would also be my story, right? So everyone might know me. So I go by Jay Lewis, but I might know me for my Instagram, my website, jlclreptiles. Some of you may know me from my article in BioWhack. It was volume 1, 2007, first publication, because I am the first documented U.S. captive bred breeder for Varanus exantematicus, so this is a Savannah monitor. That's really who I am.
Understand that I may be a scientist, but I am not a biologist. So when you go over that, I'm like going, I have a great understanding of all sorts of stuff, but when you come to naming stuff, it's like, oh my God, if anybody saw the hospice episode, you realize I'm not the greatest with names. Really not. But yeah,
not a problem.
I have physics and chemistry and body language and all sorts of stuff like that. So that's but yeah, I'm just not a biologist. I don't name stuff. Everyone either sticks to either the exantematicus or they just say the Savannah monitor, and then I got a group of people that refers to them strictly as the boss monitor. So
how's that?
That's way better.
Way better. Okay, so then all right, maybe something's wrong with this. All right, cool.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that's 100% better.
All right, what's better? Okay, so where was I? That was the intro. So I guess what the story is though, how did I even come to breeding monitors? I kind of it fell into it by accident. So I first job was at a local pet store. I was in charge of the reptile room and stuff, and anyone introduced to monitors, the most commonly kept monitor in a pet store is the Savannah monitor. Grabbed my first set there, and lucked out. I had 3 of them at the time, and ended up with 2 males and a female, and had to separate the males, from the trio. And that pair just on their own at some point bred, but at the time it was a very big deal. And the BioWhack journal had just started coming out. They were putting the first publication together, and I had been known the older forums back on kingsnake.com. That was Frank Reitz, Daniel Bennett, myself. Those were the forums that everyone started out on, just sharing information on what was going on. And so I was approached to, write everything down that I did. I've been keeping, having managed a reptile room at a pet store for a while, I've been keeping journals and logs on everything that I did. And I've always tried to keep my animals exactly as they would be kept in the wild. And so, that ended up being the journey, right? And it now is the baseline for everyone that's had success doing this. There's not a lot of us that work with that species. A lot of people have read that article, and it is a repeatable process. But then I kind of went dark for 18 years. Life moves on. It wasn't what it was in 2007. I found homes for all those babies, which were quite a lot. It was over 100. Oh, wow. And then that was it. I had gotten rid of my collection. I had moved a few times because of jobs. And then a couple of years ago, I had found a particular Savannah monitor that was just very unique, with a very unique pattern. And so I decided to go at it again, and it was a repeatable process. So I knew what to look for a male and for a female, and the one with the pattern ended up being the female. And last year she produced a clutch of 25 eggs, and it ended up being that pattern, passed through. It seems to be an incomplete codominant trait, pattern trait. And I've held back quite a few of the females that came out of that clutch that look like that. And, I'm going to continue to work on this pattern. So that's the story. But it was kind of by accident at first, and then it kind of became the standard.
Oh, yeah. Now, Jay, do you have a question for Brady?
Oh yeah, I do, because I was just writing that. I was writing that down before. So how many non-related animals do you allow yourself to get to bring into the population versus how many you keep?
I don't necessarily have a specific ratio, but I honestly, to this point in time, only a couple times out of the whole collection have I bred anything that's related. Luckily, there's been enough people before me, with the blue tongues, that even in a line, some of the orange line, or Fenn has his magma line, which are these really dark, bright red ones. There's enough people out there that have had them and mixed them and line bred on their own that, that I haven't been tempted to take mine and try to line breed them. So I would say, on average, over the course of, I've had 5 breeding seasons, and I've probably kept back about 15 to 18 total animals, and only about 5 of those so far that I've bred. So for the most part, I'd say probably about 60% of what I have was brought in from outside.
Oh, that's good. That's a nice ratio. Yeah.
So Brady, I still want to keep calling you Brad. I have to stop myself.
I answer to anything close. Brad, Bradley.
That's
Brody.
what I was telling Jay over here. It's like, you can call me Daniel, you can call me Dan, you can call me Dick. I don't give a shit.
It's a different name. Teachers my whole life, they add an L or whatever.
So Brady, what question do you have for Jay?
Jay, I'm sorry if I missed the detail. What year did you say you started originally, your first litter?
So that would have been 2004.
Okay, that's
the first article came out in 7, but it was for work I did in 04.
Do you have another question?
Yeah. No, that was just wanting to clarify something from his story, because I know he said he took 15 years off, so I was trying to get the timeline down. So, what is it about the Savannah? Is it monitors in general, or that particular species really draws you to it?
It's monitors in general, definitely, but probably they were the first species I was exposed to. Now, I think I've said this before on another podcast before. They're the most. Everyone considers them the boxy. It's just the Savannah monitor. Yeah, that's true. It's a common Savannah monitor, but they're really cool. It's the first one I was exposed to. If you're gonna have a big lizard that's not an iguana or a tegu, that was it. I've got several other species that by far are so much cooler, but there's always going to be that little place, that little 13-year-old kid that was like, first pet monitor, little Savannah monitor.
That's cool. So so the monitors, I always I admire them. I think they're beautiful, but the space constraints, make it tough for me. So, obviously they almost need their own bedroom, when they get to full size. What have you noticed are the key things that you have to do to try to keep them calm or handleable, as they grow up? Are there any tips or tricks? Because obviously that would be one of the biggest things that scares me as a 4-foot-long thing that would eat my ear off.
I love that Brady he's wanting to learn more. He wants it. I feel like you want it. I don't feel like you're just talking just to talk.
Oh no, man! I love
no. If I let Brady take this whole thing over, he'd just take it over and be like, "This monitor, how does this work? How does this oh my god!"
Hey, even if I'll never keep one, I still want to know about it.
Yeah, I love it.
Well, I guess the same thing could be said for skinks too. They're much more docile, right, from the get-go. But
like I said, there's such similarities and differences in the species.
I try and invest an hour every single day. You do. Because here's the reality: once they're calm with you, you usually don't have to continue to put in that work. Like they're used to you. But I have come back from a vacation, right? And they're like, what are you doing in my spot? You know, a big, large male water monitor would just be like, hey, I'm fine. But they'll look at you funny if they haven't seen you in a bit. So like I try and spend an hour every single day, you know, in the room with everyone individually. I touch everyone, you know, so whenever I'm changing water, pet, pet, pet. And then like real quality time, like when I'm not working, we're not doing stuff, you know, I really try and give everyone a rotation of like today, you know, I'm going to hang out with you, or we're going to go outside, or I'm going to take pictures or whatever, and give them that couple of hours, you know, rotationally every week. Cause you know, it is hard to devote a lot of time. A lot of people get away with having one big pet, you know?
I promise you, Jay, I will not take that out of context that I touch everyone. I promise I'll leave it together.
Reptiles. Touch every reptile I have.
No, that's perfect sense. It makes sense on the blue tongue side as well. If I only have a few that are, you know, for lack of a better term, that are complete assholes, and most of them came from other breeders as adults. So they didn't know me. I'm gonna assume they probably weren't socialized. They were just, you know, used and bred. And then when I got them, and you know, to this day, you know, even with handling, they're just not as tame as the others. They get better, but it's just not the same as if you've raised them from babies and given them the time all along. I'm
amazed at my Peter Banded skinks, how just handleable they are from right. And I've got people that try to criticize me, and it's like, literally, my guys come out at my voice.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, they actually hear my voice, and then when the lights go out and I'm still up here, I'll see their little heads start to poke up out of the sand, and either I'll pick them up out of it, or I'll throw a worm down in there, and they'll get up and do it. Carrie just sits on my shoulders for hours on a time. Jay, I named Carrie because when I got him in, he had these blood stains down the back of his head. So Carrie, it's like my two Savannah monitor babies that I've got right now. Love and hate.
Love and hate.
And the hate literally lives out. He's got this kink in his tail. I think they're both females, but I'm not for sure. I heard it's the size of the scale on the nostrils can help you determine.
Yeah, no, I mean it can. Like if you, and the good thing is that when you've got two side by side, like a female's mouth is the lip line is very straight back to the ear, and the nostril will be a little bit farther away from the eye, and the head itself, if you're looking at the top, is more triangular but round. You know, very round, soft features, right? Okay. And the male is going to be far more pointed. So if you're looking down on two of them, a female's head is going to be boxier and wider, but still round and soft. A male's going to be pointier, and then if in the profile, the male's nostril, you'll see more of a bump, because that'll be that bump that a male is going to have on it at the tip of his nose as he gets older. But there's also like
both of mine are female, I think.
Most likely. I mean, most likely.
I'm thrilled with that, so I can house them together the whole time. Yeah. Love has a broken paw, but she still beats hate to the worm, but she won't eat the fish. Because I put the feeder guppies in there. They won't eat the snails, but the feeder guppies, and when they pop out of the deal and they flop around, freaking hate will literally chase them down and eat them. And just like, it's fantastic. I'm editing the video now and stuff. But yeah, we could just see the love that you guys have for the animals. Like this is, like there's so much similarity in you guys in that aspect, but that's pretty common across the board with what we do. So let's do this. What is the most creative thing? Tell me this time that you had to be creative dealing with these animals, dealing with the skink or the monitor. Which one of you wants to go first?
I'll let Brady go first while I think about this.
Oh wow, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what what you mean on creative side.
You tell me. That's kind of the idea, is that you guys have your own idea of what creative is.
I will say that going into the breeding process, I don't know how much this is more creative as it is just exploring and learning, but I talked to breeders ahead of time what to expect on it, and that of course everybody gives you the warnings. Watch out, they're mean. They'll tear each other's legs off. You got to watch out. They can bite each other's face. I've seen them break their jaw. And like this, so you go into it expecting it, but you just still have no idea what you're looking for, because a lot of times that first skink that I told you that I bought, I posted pictures of it, and every breeder online said, "Yeah, that's a boy. Looks like a male. Looks like a male." Well, she's had 4 litters now, so so even the people who have done it for decades, just trying to eyeball it and look at the physical characteristics,
so have you found any creative ways for you to sex them? So,
other than the visual cues, people will argue back and forth that you can or can't do this, but you can actually, if it's not a super dark colored animal, it takes 2 people almost, because somebody has to hold it. But if you take 2 high powered small flashlights and put them right at the base of the tail, just behind the legs, once they're adult and mature, you can see the reproductive organs in there. One of the females will look kind of like a straight line across, and the males, you'll see the bulge in their, where the hemipedes are. So you can actually, somewhat reliably tell that way. But again, as babies, it's really, really almost impossible. I heard that they've got, some potential tests coming that they'll be able to sex that soon. But
yes, I'm actually hoping. I haven't contacted them yet, but I should. On my Peter Banded skinks, I've got a male and a female shed. So cool. I need to shin that to them. Yeah, shin that to them. I think that'll work if I shin it. Shin it all the way home.
Yeah, I mean, the one bad thing about that, of course, well, I mean, I guess it's good and bad, but if when you're trying to sell babies in the past, people had to just buy them, not knowing for sure what the sex was going to be. Now you'll be more likely that, yeah. But so now I would assume if that happens and you can reliably sex them as babies from their first shed, you're going to see the price of females go up and the price of males drop.
Oh wow, I didn't think about that. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, as it was, they as babies, they kind of they're all going to sell evenly because nobody knew one versus the other. But if somebody's getting into it with the thoughts of breeding in the future, of course, buying the female first, and so I would assume you'd see female prices climb and male prices drop over time if that is doable.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of those guys, because that I could do in my own labs at work, like the stuff that they do. I could do that. But I don't know exactly their process yet. And it's like, come on.
I've been surprised. I've been surprised all along that being able to sex them accurately hasn't been done. And also being able to tell if they're pregnant. I mean, I'm trying. It seems like if humans can tell by urine, you would think there's got to be some kind of biological change, in a reptile too, that might be testable.
Because there is physical differences in skinks. I'm wondering if it's over the distance, because the zebra skinks I've learned how to sex my Peter Bandeds without popping them or the vent method thing. And I'm the guy who's writing the paper. I conversate with him all the time. I actually consider him a friend. And I've figured out how to do it. I need a scale and a tape measure, but I can sex them at pretty early. But the zebras, even that Richie gave me, that the one, I'm wondering if she's a girl because she's linky, while the others have fatter heads, like most males and skinks do. And not all, it's not universal. There's other factors. And when it comes to that, when you have the bearded dragons, I've got a video on do bearded dragons change gender? And I've got some theories on how that works. They don't. There's actually trauma or calcium deficiency when they're younger, deforms or does something with their genitals, and people don't think hard enough about it, where it's like, oh, well, there's a saying that I've developed. It's, if a human being walks into a room without a penis, does it make him a girl? Because that's honestly how most of us view, even I did at first. So, okay, so no, a bearded dragon that is a female should have one slot down the middle. You should see a slot. If you don't see that slot, you should have questions. And so, but that's not the case. It's, if you don't see the two hemipenes, it's automatically a girl. And there's a mistake there because Hydra doesn't really show up as well with his hemipenes, if he's even got them. But yet he had a calcium deficiency. His nose is bigger than the female's nose. His vent, there's other tales that says he's a male, but yet his genitals are not quite right. It's fascinating, but he couldn't lift himself up off the ground when I first got him at 4 months. It took me 2 weeks to rehab him. So these are things that we could possibly see. My male that has the youngest Peter Banded broken actually has 3 broken stripes. That's why he's broken. And he was kind of hard to sex. The vent method I tried to use, but his vent is different than my other male. It looks more like the female, but his body is shaped like a male. So it's a little weirder. He should be male. His behavior is the same exact behavior as all my males right now. We're noticing right now in the season, in October, where me and a bunch of us that are Peter Banded, we're seeing them behave more. Like the males are out more. But yeah, I probably shouldn't go on like that, but that's all right. It's fascinating. It's something we don't take enough note of, that there's other things going on than just the simple, is it male or female? Right. The biology is not that simple. So, Jay, what about you? What's the most creative thing?
Oh man, it's the housing. It's the housing then, like it is. I'm a northeast breeder. It's not easy to house several species to adulthood. There's a lot of rotational trial and error to make things fit, because they've all got the adequate space that they need. But probably the silliest story is just literally I've moved 4 times with them over the course of the last 6 years for work purposes, and it's just been an event, right? Like who can be housed together, who needs to absolutely be separated. Cage is going to be apart for a couple of weeks, things are in storage, how to go about doing that. Those are always creative lessons, and you learn to be very ingenuitive as to like what's going to stay in the tub, what's getting locked in the bathroom. Waters are really good like that. They're great. But some just need to be like alone, and you move their unit period with them in it, because it's just not going to happen any other way. So that's probably the silliest.
Okay. So that leads into a question that I always ask, because I'm trying to also keep questions similar so that later on, what Animal at Home guy, I consider Dylan a friend of mine. And if you've ever seen and so I'm going to see about having him on after the end of the year. But when I do the summary of this, after I have so many people, we'll take in accounts for all this and do a summary of this stuff. And eventually I'll do a summary video, but then I would like to go on Animals at Home and actually share that summary of what I've learned from these. So the question I always ask, and I think I've got this wrong, so I'm going to ask a different question afterwards, because there was something that I learned. But this is why the channel, Learning for My Reptiles. I mean, we're learning. And so put yourself in the shoes of your animal. And one of your animals, put yourself in their shoes for a day and tell me their experience.
Their experience. See, that's where I try and I do my best to make sure that they've got a very realistic, natural environment, and that they're pretty free range. I mean, like,
Can you think of a single one and tell me a day in their brain, day in their life? Empathize with them.
My big water male. I mean, his life really is. It's a nice, simple life. Like he gets up, comes out of his pond. He climbs up his basking branch. He basks. He goes back into the water. He waits for me to come in. He's like, "Are you feeding me?" Give him a little pat on the head. Like he's just at that point where he's just this like very big dinosaur-like, very relaxed. But it's an 8 by 6, by 7 unit, and he just rotations around. I mean, that's his life. But I mean, he's pretty chill about it. It's just that big dinosaur thing. It's completely different than a baby, right? Like, because everyone keeps they're partly arboreal, lots of activity, constantly climbing branches and basking and running around. But like his day is pretty simple. I kind of like it. It's almost like a cat. I just kind of like do my thing, and filter's going to change my water and all that fun stuff, and I'm just going to relax. Not a bad life.
Yeah, my bearded dragon, my first one, she's like that. She literally, I think she plans her day around whether I stay home in my underwear or leave. And at night, Nubs, my zebra skink, the one I think's a girl, she comes out and wants food and wants to mess around at night. Like she has her pattern.
Right.
And it's wonderful.
It's funny, the skinks almost like operate as a group. It's almost like when you walk in and you're in their area, they're a lot like snakes in that they just are extremely chill and not moving a lot during the week, especially after they've eaten. They just kind of go lay and digest. But then as it gets longer on during the week, when you walk in there, at first there'll be nothing, and then there'll be one that comes to the front of its enclosure, pops its head up and looks, and then spend another 5 minutes in there, and there'll be like 4 or 5 heads in there looking at you. And by the end of the time, if you've been in there for a half hour and an hour, you'll have all of them coming over looking at you, waiting, like not sure if today's feeding day or can we get a snack. And at that point in time, then you feel you have to go through and give them all some attention. It's like, I've done something to wake them up. Now I can't just ignore them without giving them some enrichment. So
I was going to ask you that, Brady. How many do you keep? Like, what's like the max number like that you're keeping as like a group? Like 1 male to 4 females, or like do you get more than that?
For the most part, I have tried to keep, as far as breeding, the most I've ever put 1 male to is 4 females. And that's pretty rare. I usually am trying to mix them up because obviously we want to spread the genetics around as much as I can and not have, 5 litters that are all born and have the same, half of the same genetics. So typically it's 1 to 2, unless there's, the thing with the skinks is, I don't know if the monitors are the same way, but they come out of brumation and you've got a small window. It's 3 to 6 weeks where they'll show interest in each other. But sometimes it'll just happen. Your males will wake up 2 weeks before the females, and so you can end up with that window being off. And then some years you can have a male that was fantastic and bred everything you put him with last year, and this year he'll just lay there like a lump and want absolutely nothing to do with it whatsoever. So it's you can't, unlike some other reptiles, you can't just buy 1 male and 5 females and say, well, I'm set and he's going to breed those, because you might go 2 years without him wanting to show any interest, and then on the 3rd year he might want every single female that's around. So it's a matter of timing those windows, and then it's almost like a puzzle, even though you've got a male that you may put him with 2 females and he goes right for them, you put him with a 3rd female and he'll want nothing to do with her, or she'll fight him off and want, just refuse to let him near her. But then you put a different male with her and she's receptive. So it really is almost like a puzzle. So you can't just rely on it and think that you're going to get exactly the male to go with exactly the female you want. So it's best to go into the breeding season with a couple of options of like, hey, I'd like these 2 males first with her, but if there's no luck with either of those, then, maybe towards the end of the breeding season, then it's, all hands on deck, and any male that would show interest in her, I would really love a litter from her, from any male more than letting it go without. But you got to go into it, with some flexibility and some backup thoughts in mind.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so something that I noticed with the last one was the person who was using their imagination more, who was able to was able to put themselves in their shoes more than the others. So it's really interesting how that works with the human mind, that the empathy and putting yourself in somebody else's shoes is more dependent on the actual imagination of a person. So I'm trying to do this differently, a different type of question. So I like that question because it connects the other everything. But tell me a time, and if you need me to give an example, I have tons of them because I actually do read body language. But tell me a time that you read your animal, you saw something in them, you did something about it, and it had an emotional impact on that animal. If you need me to give an example, I can.
Well, I mean, I can tell you the one thing I've noticed, because I do have a couple of different species. I do have some Maruki and I do have some Key Island, and I had when I first started with the Maruki, I was keeping them similar to the blue tongues.
What's a Maruki?
The Maruki it's one of the Indonesian species. So they come from a little different environment. They come from more of the closer to the equator. They don't typically have your 4 seasons. They don't undergo a brumation like the Northerns do. So when I got them originally, I was keeping them very similar to the Northerns, except, higher humidity, which, I knew they needed. But I noticed that without enrichment, without tunnels, without things that they can dig in and through, they seem to get, more anxious or less friendly to being held and handled. So those guys, I started taking PVC pipe, building tunnels for them, mounding the substrate up over it. And it's kind of bizarre. As soon as they had that, and then more frequent misting, they seemed to come out. They almost bask in the misting, and then once they've done that, and once they have that more secure feeling home, I've noticed with them that they then became a lot more friendly and receptive to handling. But when they had before I did that, I noticed that they were showing a little bit more aggression, or a little bit more cage aggression than the Northerns did.
My Carrie, I spray him down every now and then, their enclosure, and he literally, like you said,
Oh yeah, they come over to it, and it's not. I don't think it's just a physical enjoyment. It's like it seems like it does something emotionally for them and calms them down, like they found a cool waterfall to bathe in or something. So
Spike was a bearded dragon I had that passed away. He was I had him when I got Pitch as well, and he did that. Like I was misting down their tank when I had them as babies, and I was getting like a 18 or lower freaking humidity, so misting wasn't that bad. So, and he would literally lean in over the thing like the girl from the Titanic. Just
yeah, I had a fogger on a couple of their enclosures, and as soon as they would hear the noise from the fogger kick on, they would come out of the tunnel and walk over to where the tube was going to be, just like they knew it was coming. So it's weird. It wasn't just that they're appreciating the humidity, but there's something about letting that fog or mist hit them in the face that they enjoy.
I think sometimes with I could probably tell this later, but I was thinking that my skinks, sometimes I think they like a little bit of water on them, especially when they're around shed time, just
Okay.
kind of clean them up a little bit for that. I think a little bit. What about you, Jay?
Yeah, no, I do. I had to think about it, but I have a story. So I had a quince monitor that I had rescued, and I had set it all up. Great setup, humidity is right. Introduced it to a cage mate, and it was just not happy. Like, it was like quite obvious. Like, didn't want to be kept with anyone, wasn't happy, wasn't thriving. Still alive, by the way, but like, I just realized like there was nothing I could do. Tried putting him alone, tried changing things up. The other quince was doing fine, and I decided, like, I'm going to let them both go, but I'm going to let them go separate because it was clear that he just also did not want to cohabitate. So I sent him to a buddy of mine in California, and I don't know whether it was just because, again, Jersey, you're not, in the summer, bring things outside, hang out, whatever. I use full spectrum lighting, but 4 months out of the year, everything's inside. But he went out to California and thriving, just a completely different animal, happy. It finally is allowing a cage mate, to be introduced and stuff, and doing really well, and is constantly like outside like every day in like a trade and stuff, and doing really great. But it's just so funny that there was definitely just something, nothing wrong physically here, but mentally just wasn't a good fit, wasn't happy. So made a change, and he's doing well.
And that's interesting, because I've had that too with skinks that I've purchased for people that they've said, watch out, this one, he's really mean, he doesn't like people at all, and they get here, and like I have absolutely zero problems with them whatsoever. Pick them up, they're puppy dog tame. It's like, what was different about their environment or their handling there that was causing them, to be so different in personality.
Right. And for me, I honestly think too that it's maybe the amount of other types of monitors and stuff, and it wasn't just the other quince or whatever, but like just not a sociable, I don't want other, I don't like all these other smells. Not a smell person, So it's like, it's got to be me, maybe one other thing, but if it doesn't smell all quincy, I'm not happy. So, but it's an interesting thing.
Did we lose Daniel?
I think we might have lost Daniel.
We'll run the show for
you. Do you grow your own food? Do you roaches? Like what are these guys?
The blue tongues, actually, it's mostly canned dog food is the base of their diet, which is like one of the biggest selling points.
Wow. Okay, that's great. Oh my God.
He said his computer lost. I guess he's rebooting. But yeah. So you mix in whatever vegetables. I literally whatever I find on sale. Turnip greens, yellow squash, bell peppers. You go about 60% protein, 30% vegetables, and then you can give them the occasional fruit or whatever. They'll eat insects, like they'll chew almost anything. They'll dubia. They love hornworms, snails. I buy like boiled apple snail meat from the Asian market. Like that's a huge treat to them. I guess in nature, like they actually crack snail shells open and eat them. But it's kind of nice that if you're having a rough week and you don't have time to cook anything or cut up all the vegetables, they're not going to suffer if they just get a scoop of dog food this week, because there is there's vegetable matter, protein and vegetable content in that dog food.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Listen, I think that's great. Back in the day, like Reptiles magazine, like back in like, oh God, maybe 2002, 2003, like standard even for monitors, like Triumph cat food was like to be considered like the best thing, like in the articles. Oh yeah, staple for diet, now 20 years later, you say you feed cat food or dog food to a monitor, there will be someone with a pitchfork and torches at your door. No one does that anymore, and we all know better. It doesn't work for them, right? Because of the fat content, and fatty liver is an issue with monitors in general. But it's a loss because we all have excessive feeding bills. So unless you're breeding your own food or have a very, very large deep freezer, Yeah.
I guess he just sent a new link. He said we need to join.
Oh, new link. Okay.
I guess I'll join over there. We'll see you there.
You're there.
Sounds good. Hey, Brady.
Hey, how you doing, Jay?
I want to apologize to you guys. Sincerely. It was 100% my fault. You guys are wonderful for coming back on. Literally just even now, I am not been 100% this last month. My audio was off. I had turned it off, and it's just like, are you serious? Like, I should have, like, it's insane. And that was my fault last time. We recorded a second half after my internet kicked me, and you guys were fantastic, just beyond belief fantastic. And I didn't hit record. I take allergy pills. I don't know if my cheeks are redder than they were the last time you guys saw me. They probably have gotten that way. I take allergy pills that have pseudo whatever, because it dries up my sinuses.
Yeah.
Sure.
And by doing that, I sleep better. And so my brain and everything heals faster, and it does, and I can think so much more clearly. But all of a sudden, I get told by the government I can't buy any more for the rest of the year. Till November 18th, basically. And it's like, are you guys out of your mind? Like, I didn't pick up that much stuff. Like, I literally go weeks without taking it just for this exact reason.
That's crazy.
It is, and it's there's a movie, that movie Limitless. That's why I relate to it, because of those pills. Because I took them around the same time my frontal lobe came in, about 22. And so it's like it just changed everything for me. And I haven't been able to take them. Yesterday, I went out on they had a company picnic, because my boss's boss was in from Germany.
Nice.
And so we went down to the state park in Baldwin. Oh, beautiful place. And literally right next to a animal rescue that I came across in Missouri here when I was looking at houses the other weekend. And so that boss and another boss from a different facility wanted us to go for a hike. And I'm like, yeah, I love hikes. Let's go do this. 1.9 miles, and half of that is uphill like this, like that much of an incline, and downhill the other way, going that much of an incline. It was, it was a little tough. It was, but it was beautiful. And then just the dirt and everything. So I've been sick as a dog this last like 12 hours. Yeah, it's been bad. I didn't know if I was going to make this, actually. It was like, no, you guys, I'm amazed that I'm actually talking correctly. I've noticed that I've started like mixing up my words a little bit. I was saying the word rookie the other day, and I said Wookie. So I noticed those things are coming out a little bit more, and I think that's it, my sinuses. Now, what happens to my sinuses is that the actual liquid will actually get down in my stomach, and I will have a gray out where the actual room goes black and white and starts to spin, like being in a dryer while watching the monsters. And it's bad. I will actually pass out. Yeah, so it sucks. So I'm trying to deal with all that, and I think that's some of the issues that I'm facing, where it's a little harder for me to be as good as I usually am. But I really, after our interview, I was watching TV and I was watching YouTube, and I came across the Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Eli Manning show. They were doing the interview with them on Monday Night Football. And they just had such passion for the game. I was like, oh my God. Like, it was the exact same level that you two had. Like, the exact same level. Not even, like, a little bit off. And it's like, oh my God. Like,
they get paid a little better than we do, though.
A little bit better, a little bit. And we all, and, you know, Eli kind of felt like he was a little bit more of an outsider in that deal. And you would think that they would hate each other. No, they loved each other. They were like, oh my God, this is great. Like you were saying, Jay, once, like, talk shop. Like, somebody else that has that exact passion. But like I said, Eli felt a little more like a third wheel. And I did feel a little bit like a third wheel because you guys just had that passion towards each other. Like, yeah, how do you do this? How do you do that? Yeah. And
all of those guys share. I mean, like, they share something that the common person can't. You know, and same way, all three of us have you know, raised and seen babies born and the, you know, type of stuff that the average.
I haven't, but you know, that may be something there that. But we all know. But we all know that I did feel a little bit more like the third wheel, and Eli felt like he was the third wheel. But we all know Eli's the best of the three. We all know.
He's got 2 Super Bowls.
Hell yeah! I'm just messing with you guys, but I actually wanted you guys to tell me a story. And I want you guys to tell me a story that shows off the passion, but describe your emotions through it. Be detailed on only the emotions. Like, just as you tell the story, I felt like this time, this made me feel like this changed this way after I did, like, after this. You guys want to do that?
Yeah, just trying to think of a moment.
Yeah, you know, I can tell you kind of a neat story with the blue tongue skinks. I had and kept the northerns, and I had a few of the Marukis, which are you know, one of the Indonesian species, and with the northerns, you know, the Australian species, they tend to breed much better if they go through a brumation period. You know, cool them down through the winter for, you know, 60 to 90 days. And then when they wake up, they're just, you know, in the cycle, ready to breed for a certain period of time. Well, the Maruki are Indonesian, so they come from more of a, a climate that doesn't change, that doesn't go through the 4 seasons. So, you know, you can't really trick them into being, you know, cooled and warmed back up and then trigger that response in them. So, you know, I had them for, you know, a couple of years and had, you know, no real luck, you know, getting them, you know, to breed, trying them same time of year as everything else. You know, so, but it's okay. It's like, sometimes you have a species and you're like, all right, well, if I'm just going to keep these as pets, you know, and they're not going to breed, that's still okay. They're fascinating to have. They're incredible creatures. I love having them. Well, then, there was a guy locally that I had met, and he was keeping some of them himself, and he decided he was no longer going to keep them. He had, you know, kids and needed to move on from it, and so I bought these 2 from him, and he told me that, you know, he had been keeping them together and they were fighting, so he really needed to get them somewhere where they could be separated and not hurt each other. Well, I got them not knowing this, thinking that I had 2 males. Well, about 3 months, 4 months later, turns out they weren't fighting; they were doing something else. So I came home, and my helper was, you know, one of my helpers was here working, and he opens, you know, the enclosure, and he's like, "Oh, hey, you got babies in here." And so I went in there thinking it was going to be, you know, a weird off-season Kenyan sand boas, or maybe, you know, a northern had dropped. And I was like, that enclosure? I walk over, and sure as can be, you know, here is this skink that I thought was a male in there with 4 babies of a new species. So turns out that I got these. They were, living together before. We thought that they were 2 males, and it turns out that they actually, one of them was female, and she came preloaded with babies. So
That's awesome.
So it was really cool, that it was, something that was actually here local. I purchased them and was able to make my first litter of the Indonesian species, completely by accident. But it also taught me that, apparently, October, November, they tend to breed better. Whereas, I was trying to pair mine before in the normal same breeding season that I was working with the Northerns, more towards February, March, when they were coming out of formation. So I kind of learned something about it, but also, I picked up 2 skinks and ended up with, a handful. So it was just, kind of a cool accidental way to get into it. And I've since been able to, successfully breed them a few more times, and just kind of fascinating because a lot of those come in purchased from overseas and flipped on tables. So a lot of times you see them unfortunately being imported and flipped. So any kind of increase in the amount of domestically produced ones is fantastic if we can work on trying to reduce the amount that are getting pulled out of the wild or brought from farms overseas and just flipped on tables.
So
Absolutely.
we could see the excitement.
Oh yeah.
How did it make you feel? Like how did that go about? Like,
oh man, it was the whole range of emotions. You went from confused as to how would that one even have babies? Like I thought it was a male. So some, again, like we talked about before, sometimes with the skinks, sexing them is almost an impossibility, because they physically, can look completely one sex or the other and fool you. So short of watching their interactions when they're together or finding a sperm plug or finding babies, that obviously is a clue to let you know one way or the other. But yeah, so it was kind of that, you went through the whole emotional stretch from being confused to being, elated to being, shocked to, and like I said, coming out on the ultimate end, kind of learning something about it, and trying a new season because of that.
I thought that was a door behind you, that light. I thought that was a door last time, and now it says ice cold. I'm like, going,
it's a
cooler.
It's a cooler turned incubator.
That's awesome.
Those are the best ones.
Yep, there's it's instead of going out and spending $600 or $800 on an incubator, you find somebody's cooler that they're on Craigslist saying, "Oh, this thing doesn't cool anymore. I'll sell it for $100."
Exactly what I want.
That's what I need. The light works, the fan works, it's got good circulation, it's got shelving, and it doesn't cool. I'll take it.
Exactly. Best ones.
That's awesome. Now, what about you, Jay?
No, I guess it's a similar story, right? I didn't know I had a male and female when I first bred the Savannah monitors, and I knew they were breeding and not trying to hurt each other. That was the good news, though, because there's such a size difference. But at the time, I hadn't seen enough of them to really just look at them and tell. But I figured it out, once I started watching them. But once they actually, once she started laying and nesting, and then, of course, when things started hatching, that's the best feeling in the world. First, just laying. I don't know what it is with them skinks, but monitors and people that have been breeding them, they get frustrated because they're not ball python eggs. They don't come out looking fertile at all. They're completely blank. There's no circulatory system. It's 2 weeks before you can handle them and really know if they're fertile. I handled them back then, didn't know. We didn't know that. So, you just put them in the incubator to go, right? But 3 weeks goes by and everything still looks alive. And then you handle them and all of a sudden you see stuff. But when they actually hatch, I think that's the coolest part, though. Unlike geckos or other things, it always is that arm and the claw. And it's just so Jurassic Park that first scene with the Velociraptor. It's so that, and everyone does it, right? Right. Nerd does it. Anyone who's breeding monitors, they always have that clip because it's so true. Like after that slit, it's the whole arm and the fingers. And like, that's the thing. And it's everyone. And then the eye, and like, they sit like that and they do this, like, that is legit. And that is, that brings up the 10-year-old in me. It just does. Yeah. It's a cool feeling.
Now, where do I find your book?
So it's not a book. I mean, it is an article, but I can send you a link. It's a Bioact journal, and it's issue 1. It's Varanidae. God, I can't spell that. .org. Issue 1, but I can drop that to you in this.
Okay.
I'll lock it up.
Yeah. So what I'm about to say may come off offensive, and I want to tell you that that's not where I'm going with it. I am saying I like shock value. So I'm going to say this in a weird way that I can put on the previews to kind of get people to look into it more. But after listening to Peyton Manning and them and you guys and trying to figure out what's that connection, it got me wondering if insanity increases satisfaction in one's passion. And that may sound weird, but so that saying, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, is insanity. Well, you guys breed and you get different results, but it's almost like you learn to breed and then you try to perfect it and be the best that you can, and that creates satisfaction in itself because you feel like you're there, and then it's like, oh, but I'm getting these different results. And what you guys said about the passion was that curiosity after they come out, like you get the different morphs. It's the same thing with football. As they play football, yeah, they're the same exact team, but yet they can get different results. And I'm wondering if literally being able to have multiple outcomes from doing similar things or the same thing leads one to positive in their passion, more satisfaction in their passion. I don't think it leads to longevity, but necessarily. That's not. And what I think this could turn into, I think somebody could actually make that into a master's thesis in psychology. What do you guys think?
Well, I think keeping reptiles in general is a type of insanity. I probably shouldn't say that because, like, the whole industry will be mad at me. It's definitely a fetish type hobby, right? But I mean, breeding anything, right, or being able to properly care for anything that's like a net new, taking care of these animals and taking care of them well has been the last 30 years, keeping them really in captivity, even imports, and the last, so 2004 would be the first time savanna monitors were bred in captivity, really, that at least documented, and by me. So, the last 20 years, husbandry has changed significantly, and captive breeding has been really the last, 15 to 16 years, where a lot of other species, so savanna monitors, water monitors, lace monitors, so you kind of have to. You gotta dive in deep, right? And it is a type of insanity, and it is wash, Pete, because is it ever going to be perfect? Nature's not perfect, right? It is very Jeff Goldblum, Jurassic Park thing to say. Nature finds a way, and it is chaos theory. Nothing is ever. It's cyclical, but it is sex. It's breeding, and nothing's ever the same. It's seasonal. It's the conditions have to be kind of there, but there is no specific recipe. So, I mean, and you get different outcomes, right? So, and we're all learning what those outcomes can be. I think the thing to do is just be responsible about it. You don't let shit go. You don't let shit die. You got to feed your shit. If you can't afford to feed your shit, don't breed your shit. That's right. These are all the stuff and, document for the next person, because ego is not necessary. This is not I did first, I did that, I did it best, right? Like, we should all share, and it's about conservation, like Brady was saying, is the end goal. We don't need hundreds of thousands of animals taken out of their country, shipped over here, dehydrated with worms and parasites, if we can do it here, right? And have a better option.
Hell yeah. I think that developing that learning, because that's something that I saw in you two that I loved. Like, I love it. I like it. I love it. It's really it's something that's dear to my heart. The fact that was another question I had for you two. Were either of you in school known to be the super smart kid?
Not super smart, the weird one.
I was going to say, beat up for being a nerd, or are we? No,
Okay.
actually, I definitely was on the nerdy side, but I got along with everybody, with all cliques in school. I think because I enjoy teaching, so some of the people who might have normally picked on the smart kid were like, oh man, I can get something out of this guy. So I was able to, and thankfully, because I had good teachers, the district that I went in, even though I got good grades and might have been one of those people that someone would normally make fun of, I was willing to help people out and see what I could do to teach them. So I think it kind of goes a long way.
One of the best ways to learn something is to teach it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
A lot of this stuff that I'm talking about right now, I'm trying not to go into too much depth, because I'm going to talk about this with Natalie Reptile Room when we do Maryland state laws and how reptiles and learning for children work. But we're waiting on Bill Stewart, who's a family counselor, to have free time to do the episode so he can actually work with us.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that's why I didn't want to go into too depths, but that literally is exactly what I thought of you guys. Literally, and that's great. That the people that are told that they are really smart in school actually don't do that well in life. So it's not, yeah, it sucks. But Brady, what do you think about the insanity and getting a different result from doing the same thing, leading to a more positive with your passion?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of truth, and like Jay said, in order to keep, especially if you're keeping a larger collection, you do have to be, maybe a little bit off, or at least your passion has to completely be there for what you're doing, because it takes attention away from other aspects of your life. So you're going to sink money, you're going to sink time, you're going to sink an emotional cost into it as well. I mean, anytime you've put that much work into a project, if it doesn't come out, there's going to be an emotional letdown on it too. So, but I think there's so many intricacies to it that even though we are doing the same thing over and over again, and we are lucky enough to get some different results sometimes, I think there's a lot of intricacies to it. So like what Jay said, having to keep really detailed notes and know exactly what you did. It may appear that you did the same thing, but you could have been a couple weeks one way or the other, or temperatures may have changed, or different diets or different supplements, or different food. So little details like that are just small and in the background, slight changes to the routine may actually have a big change in the output of what happens. So we are doing the same thing over and over again, but there's slight tweaks to it. So,
and that's actually the same thing for football. Like, it's like so for you guys to have the same passion, it kind of makes sense now, I think. And I think this could, like I said, this could be a study that somebody could get a master's from, to actually go out here and prove that there is some validity to this, because then it helps us understand more of the human mind and how we actually behave. Now, Jay, you said you had some notes.
Yeah. Oh, from what we when you got off camera and stuff, where we landed. So, there were a couple things that we touched base on. What if we had plans for our collection should something happen to us? Like, are they in our wills? Do we have backup plans? Who would take them? And why we made that decision? I think that's just about responsible keeping. I think if you have like a business, an actual large business like Kevin and Nerd or Pro Exotics, that's one thing. It's a corporation. There's a board, right, and it'll take care of itself. But I think if you're an individual that happens to have a hobby business, you're not that big. It's just you. How do you make sure if something were to happen that those animals aren't given proper care and transitioned out, right? Because I don't know your guys' family situation. Like, no one's going to come in and take care of my water will be provided, but I have to make provisions because yes, they need to find homes. No one wants them. It's not like the family heirloom. No one's going to maintain them. I know some people do. Like, I know plenty of people and couples that no, I'm going to take care of them. Their family too. It's like, no. This is just me. So
yeah, Bill Stewart was talking about his tortoise, and like it happened to go to his daughter, and it's like, yeah, keep that in the family. It's like,
right. And some things are like that, right? Like if I had a tortoise still or whatever, maybe like the oldest pet thing, but like a breeding colony, no, not every family or anyone's going to necessarily want that. So you got to make arrangements.
And it was something I tried to get to earlier, and I think that you guys took it in a different direction. But it sounds like you guys don't necessarily have somebody to talk shop with too often. I mean, you have, I'm sure, from time to time, but maybe not as often as you would like.
Well, yeah. I mean, you meet people in the industry, and of course, when you're at a show or anything, you'll run across a bunch of it, and then you can kind of sit down and soak all of that in. But yeah, you do end up sometime. You brought it up last time about do people ever look at us bizarrely when we get onto this topic and talk about it. My family, for the most part, has just accepted it. It's like, okay, well, yeah, oh, here he's excited. He's going to talk about baby snakes or baby skinks again. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes you have to develop those friends or people in the industry that you can bounce ideas off of, and that becomes incredibly valuable.
And I liked I mentioned that I went hiking with my boss's boss kind of thing. That guy actually didn't mind me talking about my lizards a little bit. Like you could see the passion. I was the guy on the walk that noticed a bunch of stuff, and I got to meet somebody else that he was like, he didn't know that there was such thing as state herpetologists. And so we just sat back and watched, and then got a garter snake. We found this little thing on the walk, and we picked it up and took it over to the German guy, and he's like, "Oh, this is so neat!" Like, oh, it's like, yeah, it was fun, and because the guy underneath him is that guy that I was told didn't appreciate me talking about the lizards. So it's nice to see that. Like I've talked about before, that's leadership. That's more leadership quality stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and you find different people just have different levels of interest. I mean, you're never going to go back to that guy again and talk about lizards again because he's just not interested in it. But you're going to also run. But you'll also run into people out there that have no thoughts whatsoever themselves of ever keeping a lizard, but they might still be fascinated to hear about yours and what you do and why you do it.
For the audience, what we were talking about before, because I don't want to rehash everything that we talked about. I don't think it comes off as natural, and I think that I don't know how much that would take away from it, because you guys were fantastic last time, and it was Brady has some family stuff. I have family stuff that may end up impacting me later. And he had some family stuff that impacted you to where you actually got reptiles from it. Because not necessarily because of it, but because you got put in the situation through family obligations that
because I started working from home more as I became a caregiver for my mother who had a stroke. Working from home did allow me more time, and to be in and around and work a little bit on my day job, but then also be there to be more responsible for reptiles. So that situation actually changed my work life in a way that gave me more opportunity to work with the reptiles.
And see, that's going back to hopefully I can get out of this apartment. I can get into a house. I can get some 3D printers. I can print some inserts that I've been wanting to make. And then, because I actually, like I said, I read body language. So when I, dealing with these animals, I read how they behave, how they want to move, how they want to, get on top of things or move around things and under and through. And, so I want to build towards that. I want to build to help their behavior, not just build something that goes into an enclosure, but something that actually does that. Plus, I want to build organs for models that I can make that help educate people.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, so things like that. Because my brother, like I said, he's slow. If something ever happens to my dad, we talk about it all the time, me and my dad, because there's nobody else in the family. So I'd have to go down to Joplin, which is 4 hours. So, 4 or 5 hours away. And that's a struggle. And so I would probably end up moving down there. And if I had a company already, then that would be a lot easier. But I don't really like my brother dealing with my reptiles. He's never met them. He's never seen them. But I've been on the phone with him. And like I said, my brother's slow. And when he deals with animals, he makes this clicking noise. Like, meow, click, 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 meow, click, click, click. It's weird. And then, so I told him to stop. And then he went on some other tangent over the phone when I first got pitched. And it's like, no, I'm going to hang up on you. I don't want you doing that. If I tell you to stop, you stop, or we're just not going to do this.
Right.
And it sucks.
But it shows though, the fact that you're even thinking about this stuff, even though you may not have a large collection of reptiles, you've still got that same level of responsibility and some passion there that you're thinking about what's going on in your family. And same way, if something were to happen, you had to change or move, you've already put thought to that in your future. And like Jay said, the bigger your collection grows, the more you have to think about it, because it's not even just their care, but even just the financial aspect of it. These things, I'm sure the monitors are even far worse than skinks or snakes as far as the dollar amount of sheer food that they'll put down in a week. So if you don't have a little nest egg or something aside, even if somebody steps in and is happy to try to care for your collection, who's going to come up with $300-400 a week to pay for feeders and dog food and fresh vegetables, and not to mention the time aspect, but there's a financial aspect that people probably look at us at shows and think, oh, look at all these, that animal's $300-400. These guys are making a ton of money, but they don't realize year round there's just thousands and thousands of dollars that go into
invested.
Yeah.
Most of the time we're just hoping to break even,
it's just trying to pay for the hobby.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got crawfish a while back. I don't know if I mentioned this or not, and so they've passed away. Been a couple years, or been over a year since I had them, and most of them were older anyways. And so when they pulled out the crawfish, they also pulled out feeder guppies. And they were like, feeder guppies ain't worth my time pulling them out of the bag for you. So we're just going to leave them in the bag for you, and you just have them for free. And so I went from like 10 feeder guppies to like 100 now. Like they're like almost immortal kind of thing.
So accidental pets, and they became more prolific than the actual thing you bought.
Yes. But yet that's why I was okay with getting the Savannah monitors, because they could eat them. And the amount of snails and stuff that I have. And it's like, I just got so many. That was one of the things that went into whether I would get the Savannahs or not. Because I knew how hard it was. And it's like, okay, fine with that. So let's go.
I just I wanted to let you guys know I've got somebody coming this morning that's going to be working on my bathroom upstairs. So I think he's coming around 11 o'clock. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that
this has been fantastic. Why don't we start wrapping it up?
Yeah,
That's all right.
Sure.
What did you guys think now?
You know what? One thing I was going to bring up that you asked us last time that we probably missed in that is you asked us for something positive we took from meeting and talking to the other. And one thing I wanted to bring up, we got some noise input there. I was just going to say the one thing that I really took away that I thought was fantastic is Jay was explaining how he had been such a big part of the start of the breeding process of the monitors early on, but then his life changed in a way that took him away from it. And he actually spent, would you say 14, 15 years away from it completely? And then, the passion came back into it, and it was still there for him to step back into it and restart that. So I thought that was fantastic. And it had to have been really interesting to see over that 15 years what people took from the knowledge and the input that you gave originally and how they had expanded on that. That probably had to be fascinating to say, I see bits and pieces of what I started here. But also it's great that people took the torch and ran with it, and have improved on what I was able to give the community originally. So I thought that was a really great takeaway from having heard Jay's story.
Yeah, and with yours, with the family impact, just still the dedication and making the time that you had and building that colony and the passion still, and not having it impact you. Because I know, when I had walked away too, like I had moved several times, so like it never really had an opportunity to come back. That was something you and I kept talking about. Was like when you transition and move and you downsize, it's always hard to kind of pull it back together because it's never the same, right? But I find, that situation, just keep that hope going, plan for the moves.
Yeah.
That is absolutely awesome. I love that. So this whole experience has been very positive on both of you. I'm glad because, now the audience can know that, let's invite more people on here. Let's get more people to do this. If I can get about 50 people going through this, then I'll make a summary and then go on Animals at Home and, talk about it as well. I actually usually cut off these things like after everybody's left, but, for the audience, go ahead and send this to people that you want to have on the show to do this with, that you want to realize. The one episode that I want to do now after having you two on is Mike's monitors versus Frank Payne.
That'd be a good conversation.
That would be fantastic, would it not?
Yep.
And then two people that have second to none on freaking enclosure game. So I'm actually thinking of having asking Scared Gecko, or what is that? That's at the show. The really awesome booth that's always there.
Yeah, I can't think of the name right off the top.
Yeah, if I could find another one that has like a great booth, I'm thinking of like the guy that does the Anoles in California, maybe, and having those guys on because it's great booth, and that's something to talk about. how we present ourselves as a hobby, and that would definitely be a reach out reptiles. Is that it with for the retics, dwarf retics?
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah,
dwarf six. Yeah,
Yeah. He does a fantastic job on that. I would love to do that interview. I finally got Jeff. I'm going to butcher this. I'm trying hard not to. Jeff Brigler. Jeff Brigler. Can't believe I can actually say that correctly. But he's the Missouri herpetologist. He's the one that went out and saved the hellbenders. I'm going to interview him, and we're going to go over the laws of Missouri, conservation of Missouri, things like this, to try to get a better handle on how one might go about making laws and conservation.
That's fascinating. That whole hellbender program at the St. Louis Zoo is amazing.
I saw a commercial of it the other day, and I was like, what? Like, it just came on YouTube, and I was like, this is fantastic. Like, what? And he's on the commercial for it. Jeff is. Cool. And it's like, okay, like, this is... And I saw the help, like, something that I preach constantly, that these animals are not mindless. Even the hellbender that they showed on those commercials are not mindless at all.
Yeah.
Like, it was literally going through the water, and the water was all rocky where it couldn't slide between it, and you could just see that it's wanting to slide under the rocks. It's like it has a goal, it has a plan, but yet it's in a new area and it's trying to figure it out. It's like I'm a little wishy-washy on if that was done for the commercial or everything because it's super clear water. So I don't know. These are things that I'm trying to do things like this for the hobby. So I hope you guys stay in touch. I hope you guys like that. I'll definitely see you at the show, Brady.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
I'm a recluse. I'll get out.
Yeah, I gotta go find a house, do laundry, freaking. Oh God.
Well, enjoy your Saturdays then, guys.
Yeah, same to you, Jay.
It was a pleasure. I loved having you guys. Respects all the way around for you guys. Send me that note there, Jay.
I will.
And thank you guys so much. And I want to apologize about the troubles.
Hey, no worries about that.
100% my fault. But love this.
All right. You guys take care.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great afternoon.
Be well. Bye-bye.
Those guys are awesome. Now, Midwest Reptiles. That's what he said. Go look for him there. I'll put that paper that Jay's sending me. I'll put that in the description. Okay? Hey, I love you guys. Go send this to people. Send this to Mike's monitors. Send this to him. Send this to Frank Payne. Tell him that you want this. That you want him to come on. Let's do this.